Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. We've got a lot of stuff to get to today. We are talking about what is going on, what went on last night in North Carolina, the anniversary of 9/11, a very major vote on the gig economy, and a possible rape accusation against the N.F.L. star who's been in the news a lot lately, Antonio Brown. So that's going to be a lot of what we have to get into today. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us here. It is the Wake Up. A lot of stuff to get into. All right, so we start with California and their lawmakers approving a landmark bill on Tuesday that requires companies like Uber and Lyft to treat contract workers as employees. Major vote. So that's going to help them a lot. California legislators, they approved this landmark bill on Tuesday that requires companies like Uber and Lyft to treat contract workers as employees, a move that could reshape the gig economy and adds fuel to years-long debate whether the nature of that work is too insecure. And I mean, again, obviously, I think it's been proven that it is, but I think the main problem is people can't do anything else. And it's not something that, like, they work really to do to find pleasure. It's something they do on the side to get a little extra money, that kind of thing. So, the bill passed 29 to 11 in a vote in the state Senate and will apply to app-based companies, despite their efforts to negotiate a possible exemption, which, I mean, it seems like Uber and Lyft, like, they would be getting, like, the bill's mostly aimed at them. Like, everyone can really say there's an app-based companies. California Governor Gavin Newsom endorsed the bill this month and is expected to sign it after it goes through the state assembly, which is expected to be kind of a formality. It's going to go. It's going to work. It's going to happen, folks. Under the measure, which will go into effect January 1st, workers must be designated as employees instead of contractors if a company exerts control over how they perform their tasks or if their work is part of a company's regular business, which it all is for people like Uber and people like Lyft. So, I mean, again, that's going to be pretty tough. I don't know if that they're going to be able to get out of that loophole there, luckily enough. So it's a good part of it. So it's good to see this happening. A huge victory, I think, really, for people who, for the working class here. So good job for California doing this. The bill may influence other states. A coalition of labor groups pushing similar legislation in New York and bills in Washington State and Oregon were similar to California's but failed to advance, could see renewed momentum. New York City passed a minimum wage for ride-hailing drivers last year but did not try to classify them as employees. In California, legislation will affect at least 1 million workers who have been on the receiving end of a decades-long trend of outsourcing and franchising work. They've had a rough go of it, workers here lately, and it's really good to see them possibly maybe getting something that they can really work with here, because it's just not something you're able to see very often. It just really isn't. So it's good. It's really is good. So it's going to make employer-worker relationships more arm's length, though. That's the thing. Many people have been pushed into contractor status with no access to basic protections like minimum wage and unemployment insurance benefits, things like that. Ride-hailing drivers, food delivery couriers, janitors, nail salon workers, construction workers, franchise owners could now all be classified as employees. So it's good stuff. But the bill's passage, which codifies and extends a 2018 California Supreme Court ruling, threatens gig economy companies like Uber and Lyft. These ride-hailing firms, along with app-based services that offer food delivery, home repairs, and dog walking services, have built their businesses on inexpensive and independent labor. And I mean, again, that is something that you're going to have to. I think you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to realize that's not always okay. That's not always a thing that you can do, because it's like you need to if a company can't pay its workers, I mean, I think you really have to question, like, should that company really even exist? If it can't treat its workers right, then how is it supposed to exist? I just don't get it. It'll have a major reverberations around the country, says David Weil, a top Labor Department official during the Obama administration, author of a book on the so-called fissuring of the workplace. He argued that the bill could set a new bar for worker protections and force business owners to rethink their reliance on contractors. So it's good stuff to see for sure. Today, the so-called gig companies present themselves as the innovative future of tomorrow, a future where companies don't have to pay Social Security or Medicare. let's be clear, there is nothing innovative about underpaying somebody for their labor. That is a great point there. All right. Uber recently laid off 435 workers, the company's second round of cuts in recent months, and the jobs lost represent about 8% of the global product and engineering group. So not a very big cut, but still something you definitely need to keep an eye on. Margaret Vestager, a European Union competition commissioner whose billion-dollar fine said made her loathed by Silicon Valley, has new powers that give her unrivaled regulatory reach. It's going to be interesting to see what she does with them. Definitely be keeping an eye on them. But now we turn to another major story today in the White House, where the abrupt ouster of the National Security Advisor John Bolton on Tuesday was immediately followed by speculation over his successor, whom Trump said he would name next week. The short list includes Charles Kupperman, Bolton's deputy, Stephen Biegun, the special representative to North Korea, and Brian Hook, the special representative to Iran. I've never heard of any of these names before, but it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. So, some more of these names here include Fred Fleitz, Bolton's former chief of staff, Keith Kellogg, a retired lieutenant general and former acting national security advisor, Jack Keane, a retired Army vice chairman, currently advising the vice president on national security. So Robert Blair is an advisor to Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff right now, and Robert C. O'Brien, the administration's hostage envoy, who called Trump the greatest hostage negotiator in American history. So yeah, definitely work in there. Let's start with Kupperman, who seems to be right now. He's been listed first, at least. So Kupperman's a former Reagan administration official and defense contracting executive, two major flags there. Reagan's foreign policy was disgusting, and the fact that he's got defense contracting executive does not help either. That means he's going to be pushing for war and actually have most likely some sort of monetary interest in it. Maybe he owns some sort of share, has some deep ties to people who profit off of war. So it's going to be disturbing to think about having him in there. But yeah, right away, those are two, at least to me, major red flags. Known by many national security officials by his nickname, Cupperware, for his blandness, Kupperman was appointed in January by Deputy National Security Advisor under Mr. John Bolton. Shortly after Bolton left the White House on Tuesday, Hogan Gidley, a Deputy White House spokesman, told supporters that Kupperman would serve as Bolton's acting successor, which is it's always a good place to be in to get the next job if you're named the acting successor. But still, the president appreciated Kupperman's justified style compared to Bolton's often ideologically charged delivery. But if Trump had to have a national security briefing concerning long-term planning, he preferred it from Kupperman as opposed to Bolton. So that it definitely helps. Definitely helps. So yeah, definitely helps his case anyway. So yeah, here's another guy who could be in the game for it, I guess. Stephen E. Biegun. He's the United States Special Representative for North Korea. He's a first-hand window into the clashes between Bolton, who never wavered from a hawkish, hardline stance on North Korea. God knows what he was suggesting. And Trump saying, actually turning stuff down from Bolton, and he was not able to convince him of this crazy pro-war agenda. But yeah, Biegun's considered kind of a capable technocrat rather than a big ideas person, unlike Bolton, who had firm ideological views that shaped his policy position. So it seems like these two guys are kind of very technocratic and not very ideologically driven, which is good to see. But who knows? Either of these guys could make a deadly case for war that he could really do. So Trump could really buy, which was kind of what worries me a little bit. This summer, Biegun was initially floated internally to have the possibility to succeed John Huntsman Jr. resign in August as the administration's ambassador to Russia. The job ultimately went, though, to John Sullivan, a deputy Secretary of State under Mr. Mike Pompeo. So that's a little bit of the top two contenders. So that's definitely interesting to look at. So, but the president said he'd fired Bolton. Bolton insisted he resigned. Regardless, they had a functional disagreement over foreign policy. Most recently, Afghanistan. Bolton successfully pushed to stop a peace agreement with the Taliban, but the president long complained that Bolton was too hawkish, which is interesting. So, Bolton had discouraged talks with North Korea and advised against cooperation with Russia. His exit removes one of the last constraints on Trump's sense of the possible in our world affairs, writes New York Times correspondent on national security. So that's going to be very interesting to watch and very interesting to see unfold here, because I think it's like, what will he do now, and who's going to be in place? And it's going to be interesting to see that he chewed up and spat out this overly hawkish character in John Bolton. So, like, that's very, very interesting to me, and very, very encouraging, obviously. But the fact that Bolton is out and that Trump was not too hawkish, or Bolton was too hawkish for him, I find to be very, very cool and very, very interesting. So, you really do like to see it. So, you love to see it, in fact. Anyway, we are going to now move on to the North Carolinian election last night. Dan Bishop, a state senator, narrowly won a special House election on Tuesday that highlighted both Trump's appeal with his base and his party's deepening of popularity with suburban voters. The president endorsed Dan Bishop, who defeated Dan McCready, a moderate Democrat, by about 2 percentage points. So, yeah. The results did kind of give Democrats hope for 2020. McCready performed better in the Charlotte suburbs than he did last year. This is, of course, the election where there was massive voter fraud. They had to redo it. Oh my God, yeah, the debate is Thursday. Oh, I didn't realize that. I did not realize that. It's going to be, the debate is tomorrow. So that is going to be major. That's going to be major stuff. So anyway, wow. McCready narrowly lost again to a different Republican. Again, the results were thrown out after election fraud. That debate news kind of caught me by surprise. But anyway, back to this election here. I think it was really kind of interesting, because what I could see here was a real interesting look at the effects of moderate versus, because like, he did a little bit worse in the in kind of the somewhat rural areas, or some of the less populated, more rural, more kind of, maybe even what I'm trying to hit at it here is populist in some shape or form or fashion, those areas, which is interesting. This is Dave Wasserman, who's a political results analyst. If you told me yesterday that McCready would carry Mecklenburg County, which is Bishop's base in the Charlotte burbs, by 12.6% after winning it by just 9.5% in 2018, I would have bet that he would win. But his poor showing among rural Trump Dems, I guess, and it kind of seems a weird way of putting it, but I do get his point. I do get what he's trying to say there. But yeah, his poor showing among rural Trump Dems cost the Dems a pickup. So yeah, who would have done better at flipping Trump Democrats? Supposedly moderate, right? Like, supposedly he would have been able to flip those Trump Democrats. No, in my opinion, I think it would have been someone who's left wing and actually can kind of spin a message of somewhat populism, because there are these Trump Democrats out there who want to see it, and in that district as well, which I found it to be a little bit interesting, who want to see some change, who want to see some real policy issues to get behind and support, and that's about things they really care about and they really want to hear about. So that is something that Dan McCready and really the moderate side, the moderate coalition in the first place, they just cannot offer. They just can't do it. And that is why I think he didn't pull it off. But and I think there's definitely the point to be raised that, hey, it's really possible that the suburban Democrats just would have stuck with any Democrat, but not the Trump guys. That's why you need some sort of a left, at least with some sort of real cogent political positions that are very, very easy to see. So in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Tuesday that he would move to annex nearly a third of the occupied West Bank if he wins the election next week. Wow. Netanyahu cited President Trump's support in announcing the move, which would reshape the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and reduce any future Palestinian state to an enclave encircled by Israel. Netanyahu's re-election effort has been clouded by accusations of corruption, and his rivals denounced the plan as a political ploy, so it's going to be a very, very big blow. Israel